Hey guys, it's Evan with MK Exotic. Happy mid-September 2025. Today's video is about weekly maintenance on a group of tiny baby snakes. And so I'm going to show you what I do to maintain my hatchlings, my recent hatchlings. And so I'm just going to show it to you. This is my small hatchling rack. It's homemade. I actually made a video about this before. But this is where I keep all my tiny snakes. The snakes, when they're born, they're too small to keep in a lidless rack down here. Like these are my boa racks when I have baby boas. But this is like children's pythons, king snakes. Right now I have my 2 holdback children's pythons in here, and then I have 12 California king snakes that were born. They've all except for one of the king snakes has had their first feed. They're like 2.5, 3 weeks old now. But I'm just going to show you, this is how I set them up. It's got back heat. I had a video showing exactly how I made this with details, so go back through and look for that if you want. It's like DIY snake rack for tiny hatchlings or something like that. I'll put it in the description. But other than that, couple of things. One, I use little pieces of paper like bookmarks to kind of divide out animals. And so here, like here on up, these are children's pythons. And then here down is half of my king snakes, and here down is the other half of the king snakes. Because when baby snakes are being born, they take longer to feed, so I tend to break up large groups into 2 groups or 3 groups so that it's less frustrating day to day. So anyways, this is my weekly major clean on the weekend, and then midweek I feed and I go through and I spot clean and I'll change waters if I need to and whatnot. But other than that, just tell you, everything is labeled with a piece of masking tape because you have to be very organized. And one of the things I do when I keep track of these animals, let me see if I can bring this closer to you, is I create a list. Like, so here's just a list. I have 1 through 11. There's 12. So once the 12th one feeds, I'll put that down there and I mark it and I circle it showing that it fed. And then this is how and what I do is as they feed, I give them a number. So the first one to feed is a 1 and the last one to feed is going to be a 12. And that kind of lets me know relative order on which ones has the most meals in it. So as I go to start selling, the first ones I'll start selling are the early ones, you know, the lower number ones. And that's just a way to manage it. But come up with some way to keep yourself organized or you'll be really sad. I think it's disorganized. But other than that, let me move my table in. I'm just going to show you how weekly maintenance on this goes. So let me see. Probably have to readjust my camera here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to readjust myself down. Let's see. But this is everything that I use on a weekly maintenance. Here, I'm just reorienting my camera. I want to do this so that you actually can get a good look at the animals too. So let's see. Zoom out. Can I zoom out? Let's see. Will it? Come on. Zoom. Zoom. Maybe that's as much as it'll zoom. But anyways, here's what I have ready for me when I have animals. I have a little container. This is where I put the dirty water bowls and any spot cleaning things, and then I go and I sort through it later. And what I do with the water bowls is I rinse them out really well, soak them in a soap and bleach solution, then rinse them and let them dry. I have some dry clean substrates, so if I have any animals that have soiled or they have overly wet substrate, I'll change that out. I use long fiber sphagnum moss for these tiny animals. It's really great. It holds a lot of moisture, but the point being is if you don't over wet it, it doesn't have to be a very wet substrate. Like California king snakes and children's pythons don't like a lot of moisture. So this is crispy dry and it works great. I really love it because you can go from very dry with it to very wet if you need to. It's a little bit antibacterial, so it tends to promote hygiene and you don't have to change it too often. It's a little expensive to use in larger cages, that's why I don't use more of it. But in these tiny containers, you just need like a pinch like that at a time. I tell you, too much substrate is actually working against your interest of feeding. Other than that, I have a complete new set of water bottles. I use these little 2-ounce salad dressing cups and I melt a hole in them with a soldering iron in the lid, and that's just a good way to control spilling and moisture. I have a complete separate set of them to change, and then I just have a little spritzer in case it gets too dry. So here we go. I'm gonna do my children's pythons first. And this is just a straight up cleaning. This is not a feeding. Children's pythons. And this one shed this week. I knew it was gonna shed. And actually, so I pulled the shed out. This is one of my holdbacks that I've actually decided I'm gonna let go. I'm gonna post these on morphmarket sooner than later. But here you go, just a look at it. Other than that, put this in here. He's a little crispy. I like it to be not bone dry, but I don't want it to be wet at all, if that makes sense. So there you go. Put him back in. That's one children's python done. Second children's pythons. I held these back because they are a sexual pair, male, female. They are from 2 different litters, so they have less relations, and they're very different looking. Like this one actually is feeding really well. Food wrapped me last time. So let's see. But this is a very lightly colored one. So this is the female. Very different, but so I think that they're a nice example of the 2 that I have. Change the water. Look, make sure it's not anything in there. Pull out. Spritz, spritz, spritz. I have to re-spritz like every other week or so. So it kind of just depends. If I notice they're in shed, I'll spritz. Or if I notice they're bone dry, I'll spritz. 2. Pull my bookmarkers. So separate them. A couple California king snakes. First one. A little higher white one. And this is about as much substrate as you want to put in when they're not fully feeding yet, because too much than that, they'll just try to run underneath it when you feed them. But here's a nice one. It's got a smiley emoji. Once I get 5 meals into these, and they're solidly feeding on unscented pinks, they're not taking scented pinks, they're taking unscented ones now. But once I get 5 solid, good snatching meals into them, these will all be available. But probably another month. Another little clean one. This was actually a really nice litter. This is my first California kingsnakes I've ever bred. Just really nice. Came out, had 14 beautiful, gorgeous ones. Pretty big, actually, surprisingly big. Nice clean ones, nice healthy, perfect. Can't complain. But yeah, this is just seeing what you do. Now see these, see how this one on this side has just a touch of moisture? That is borderline, that's about as wet as you want it to go. And what I would do, whoop, these are fast. These are wicked fast. But that substrate right there is a little wetter than I want it to be. It just spilled out, so I'm going to pull it out to reduce the moisture and make it overall, make it spend the majority of its time in a drier environment, because a little bit too much moisture is apt to promote unclean conditions, apt to promote skin issues, apt to promote health issues. So in general, less is more with moisture, especially with North American colubrids. You don't want too much condensation. And one of the reasons why these two are a little wetter is I probably splashed them a little bit when I moved them around and bumping them at some point during the week. But just manage it. Don't let it be sopping all the time. I'm just going through. This is just what it takes. And then midweek I'll come in and I'll feed. Nice little California king snake right here. Yeah, these are pretty gorgeous. One other little tip. I'm not doing it because it's harder to film in it, but if you do it inside of a big tub, they're a little less zippy away. And so it's just a little hedge. See, like, you'll see them go whoop, and they get a little squirrely. But it's just an efficiency hack, and you don't have to do the mad scramble all the time. But make sure I'm not getting its tail. Click, click. Click, click. Click, click. So yeah, usually if I wasn't trying to film this, I'd do it inside of a deep tub. It's just harder to film. And then here we go. Here we go. Again, pinch out a little bit of this moisture. Replace the water. Knock some of the moisture from the lid. This is just moisture control, guys. Moisture control is one of the biggest things in the health of your animals. Even like tropical animals, like true red-tailed and things that people say that they need a lot of humidity. It's true that they do, but also they don't ever need it to be dripping wet, if that makes sense. And dripping wet's never a great thing in my opinion. So here's an example of one that's dripping wet because it's spilled. So that you need to attend to. What I'm gonna do, there you go, pull this out. Try to sop it up with some of the spent sphagnum. Just get it out of there. Throw it away. Throw it away. Replenish with some bone dry. And it'll kind of, putting in very dry substrate kind of moderates any extra moisture in there too, if that makes sense. So, here we go. But switching to these little lidded cups was huge for me being able to maintain the water, the hygiene of these. I used to keep them like, I used to just use the cup without the lid and the hole in it, and it was just much wetter more of the time. It's just a little life hack. But here we go. Clean this up. Put this in. When you get into a number of animals, you need to figure out systems that work for you to quickly and efficiently get through them, especially with babies when they're first born, because getting them feeding and things is very intense. You need to just have a very systematic way to keep their hygiene and general maintenance on top. Otherwise, it's going to get away from you really quickly. And so that's one of the reasons why I just show how I run these systems. If that makes sense. This one's going to dart. This is actually a perfect case. See how this is dry, clean. This bowl's right here. This is how I'd like it to look all the time. I come in twice a week and I open these cages, and if they don't look like this, I change it, as I'm doing here. Here's a little example. All right, last one. Oops, sorry. Didn't mean to bump you. That one down there, little one. This is the one that has not fed, so if you can see, it's a little bit smaller than the others, but because when they're first born, 1 or 2 meals makes a difference in how they look visually. But there you go. That is me taking 14 snakes. This video is 11 minutes and 30 seconds right now, so less than a minute a snake to do the major maintenance for the week. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go take these, rinse them off in hot water, soak them in this cup with some dish soap and some bleach, rinse them off really well, let them dry so that they're ready for next time, wipe this table down, and keep going through my collection. Hope that was of interest to you. Take care. Bye-bye.